Chapter 271, The Tricolored Bone Staff. Han Shao was roaring in extreme agony on the oval altar in the second layer of the Cemetery of Death. Thick green light wreathed his body. His head in particular was showing a jasper-like luster. The ethereal light seemed to be the most lustrous green jade. Han Shao's mental strength still grew at a crazy rate during this process. However, the brand from the evil god from an unknown source actually wanted to penetrate deep into his soul, ordering him to become a loyal follower of the religion of the evil god until death. This was a kind of soul brand similar to the one that Han Shao imprinted on the little skeleton and Earth Elite zombie. Once his soul was stamped by this brand, he would never be himself again. This was absolutely something that Han Shao didn't want! Although his brain felt like it was being cut by 10,000 blades, Han Shao still held on, his eyes bulging in agony. He roared madly in rage, trying to alleviate the pain in some way. However, the power of the soul brand was becoming ever greater as the growing green halo above the altar grew brighter. In his panic, an enormous pitch-black figure appeared in Han Shao's consciousness. The massive body seemed to blot out the sky. Its green pupils were like two huge full moons. The eyes glanced over all beings as if looking down upon weak tiny ants. The enormous pressure filled the heavens and earth, making it difficult for Han Shao to even breathe. This kind of endless presence tasted of immortality, like a star existing for billions of years in the galaxy. Submit. There will be no pain, only eternal life. A spirit imprint suddenly broke into Han Shao's mind, repeatedly tempting him. It seemed that if he just relaxed and accepted this brand, the suffering would be gone in the next moment and his life would be endless. No! Han Shao screamed tragically, his hands clutching his head as he rolled around on the ground. The demon slayer edge stored in his body abruptly shot out terrifying amounts of killing intent. The negative feelings of fear, resentment and thirst for destruction coalesced into a force that instantly flowed into the demon infant to form a resistance. The demon slayer edge shrank into a beam of light, bringing every fiber of power within Han Shao to bombard the shadowy figure that had been born from the panic within his mind. Crack! A crisp sound like the breaking of fragile glass resounded clearly in Han Shao's mind. The colossal figure shattered into spots of starlight. The lights suddenly gathered into the demon slayer edge. In a blink an eye, the agony that had ripped apart his heart and pierced his lungs retreated like the tides. Within his consciousness, the frenzied rate of growth of his mental strength suddenly stopped. The green light curtain above the altar also disappeared without a trace. The eye of darkness in Han Shao's hand vanished, replaced with a green bone staff. The upper part of the staff was formed by 3 skulls. The bone staff was 1 meter and 30 centimeters in length and was made out of a green jade-like material. The 3 skulls weren't human and were respectively yellow, blue and purple. The yellow skull had 3 big eye sockets, the blue one had a horn, while the purple one was riddled with finger-sized holes. Although their shapes were strange, the skulls were as small as a fist, each one looking more sinister than the one before. These 3 skulls integrated perfectly with the staff, with the 3 skulls looking in different directions crowning the top. Han Shao slowly calmed his breathing. In the end he fainted and fell listlessly to the ground in a comatose state. However, whilst unconscious, the bone staff in his hand emitted yellow, blue and purple rays of light from the 3 differently shaped skulls. The 3 lights were like silk ribbons that glided into his nose and mouth at the same time. Blood was still flowing from Han Shao's mouth and nostrils due to the piercing agony he had just experienced. Each plume of hot blood slowly drifted into the 3 skulls under the guidance of the tricolored lights. The 3 skulls gleamed with increasing light. The 3 skulls finished absorbing the fresh blood from Han Shao's mouth and nostrils. The staff shone with brilliant light that slowly dispersed. The bone staff then returned to normal. After who knew how long, Han Shao gradually came to. His whole body ached to the extreme, as if his meridians and bones had shattered. There wasn't a place that didn't scream out with pain. On the other hand, after experiencing explosive agony, his mind was now clear and comfortable. When Han Shao looked down at the bone staff, he was startled. His eyes were full of confusion, as he simply didn't know where this bone staff had come from. Where is the eye of darkness? Han Shao was greatly shocked in the next moment as he discovered that the eye of darkness that had been in his hand during the whole ordeal had vanished. The eye of darkness was the key in and out of the Cemetery of Death. Once it disappeared, he could only use the transportation matrix to leave the Cemetery of Death with which it would be a tremendous setback. Suddenly Han Shao looked closely at the bone staff and noticed that its jade green color was the same as the color of the Eye of Darkness. The staff felt extremely familiar in his hand. A thought struck him. Han Shao tried to use the bone staff in the same way he'd used the Eye of Darkness. When the bone staff immediately shot out a familiar green halo, Han Shao understood what had happened. Staring fixedly at the bone staff for a while, Han Shao became more and more surprised. However, when he recalled the matter of the evil god invading his soul, he fearfully put the staff into his space ring. He didn't dare to try out its power when his magical yuan was exhausted and body extremely fragile. Closing his eyes to recall the events that occurred before he fell unconscious, Han Shao couldn't help but feel fortunate. He secretly thought that this cemetery of death was really not that simple. When that evil god infiltrated his mind, the horrifying pressure from that shadowy figure on him had been truly unthinkable for Han Shao. Han Shao was certain that the colossal figure was definitely the true appearance of the evil god. Han Shao completely understood what the evil god's brain wanted to do to him. This made him even more grateful to have escaped, and he became more cautious of the cemetery of death. In the next moment, Han Shao remembered what the shadowy figure said: let go of everything and accept the spirit force. It will help you reach the power of a grand magus. Ecstatic, Han Shao chanted a spell to summon one ordinary skeleton. 8 skeletal warriors immediately appeared on the altar. Feeling the smooth circulation of his vast mental strength, Han Shao was overjoyed upon discovering that his mental strength had made a shocking advancement. The same necromancy spell meant that the results would be different based on the strength of one's mental strength. Generally speaking, a magic spell could be divided into 5 levels based on one's mental strength. Take summoning a skeletal warrior for example. A novice magic apprentice with weak mental strength could only summon 1 skeletal warrior. However, for journeyman mages, they could release the second level of the spell due to their stronger spirit force, allowing them to call upon 2 skeletal warriors. Han Shao summoning 8 skeletal warriors meant that he had reached the 4th level of the spell. This was more than enough proof for his terrific improvement in mental strength. According to the explanation in necromancy magic books, Han Shao understood that one would reach the 4th level for the skeletal warrior summon only when their mental strength advanced to Grand Magus. Truly unexpected. This was all true. To advance to Grand Magus all of the sudden. This cemetery of death is strange but truly miraculous. Han Shao was ecstatic. He couldn't help but laugh heartily despite his fragile current state. Struggling to sit up, Han Shao's eyes shone brightly as he looked around. He saw that this second level was half the size of the first one. The surrounding area was empty except for the oval altar in the center. No items were stored in this secret room. The second level centered around the altar. Beneath Han Shao, a mysterious magical formation was set up to occupy the entire room. There was nothing else except for it seemingly a place to cleanse the soul and improve mental strength. Han Shao rested for a while before leaving the second level of the cemetery of death. He sat in the center of the magical formation, slowly gathering his exhausted magical yuan and restoring it bit by it. After about 5 days, Han Shao heaved a sigh of relief and murmured in good spirits, although the evil god invaded my soul this time, it was actually rather useful. Not only did my mental strength advance to Grand Magus level in one fell swoop, even my magic cultivation showed signs of great improvement. Han Shao wasn't in a hurry to leave. He stayed in the cemetery of death, spending the entire day and night to indulge in the study of necromancy magic. Although he had the power of a Grand Magus, he still needed to brush up on some necromancy spells. Thanks to the absorbed memories from Clarendon, Han Shao could officially begin his preparation for the Archmage level. The memories played an important role. Han Shao practiced necromancy magic in the cemetery of death without rest or food, as if he was possessed. He repeatedly cast tall Archmage level spells. He practiced every day until his mental strength was completely exhausted. Afterwards, his mental strength improved slightly with meditation. Over 10 days, Han Shao could skillfully release the several Archmage level necromancy spells that he'd gained from Clarendon. As for the 2 new spells written in the book of necromancy magic that he'd picked up in the cemetery of death, however, it was difficult to grasp them in a short amount of time. Han Shao decided to not waste any more time and left the cemetery of death via the transportation matrix. Chapter 272, The effect of the rebirth pill. Lancelot, Empire. Ossen City. The Babylon Academy of Magic and Force. Master Fanny, you've become more and more beautiful. Jean looked at Fanny and praised sincerely in the testing fields of the necromancy department. That's right, Master Fanny. How did you do it? Can you please tell us how? Lisa looked at Fanny with admiration and asked sweetly, Master Fanny, what herbs did you use? Please tell us. Yes, please. Several female students of the necromancy major surrounded Fanny, chattering non-stop. For women, beauty could be said to be the matter that they were most concerned about. Like the forest troll's love for pillaging, a woman's love for beauty was innate. No woman was an exception to this. I've told all of you many times already. There is no secret method. I only relaxed my mood and the change occurred naturally. You shouldn't be so surprised, Fanny explained with resignation. Although she knew her students wouldn't believe her, this was the only answer she could give them. Fanny was as if reborn after consuming the rebirth pill. Her mental strength had undergone a huge improvement and increased by twice as much when she meditated. Her mind was suddenly clearer. The magic theories she used to have problems with were now easily understood. Fanny's skin was also creamy, similar a newborn baby's. Her face was a glowing white with a touch of rosiness on the cheeks, like a delicately crafted porcelain doll, giving people the feeling of surreal beauty. This miraculous transformation had occurred over 10 days. The female students and teachers had all witnessed it. Even Fanny herself was unable to say that this was a natural transformation. Many female teachers had come to consult Fanny about this matter. Even Dean Emma herself asked. Only Fanny herself knew that this was thanks to Hansha'o's rebirth pill. She had taken a 3-day leave and spent almost all of it on the toilet. She'd been mad at his prank. However, when she looked in the mirror 3 days later, she was dumbfounded. She froze for dozens of seconds before exclaiming non-stop in ecstasy, Brian O'Brien, you cute little fellow. Master Fanny, Master Fanny. Jean shouted loudly a few times. Startled, Fanny looked at Jean and said, Master Jean, what is it? Class is over. Master Fanny, I noticed that you've been staring off into space more often recently. Jean had recently discovered that when he talked to Fanny, she often didn't pay much attention to him. The times he saw her fall into a daydream, her eyes flickered with yearning. Oh, class is over? Thank you for reminding me, Fanny responded apologetically. She turned to the students to advise them about something before walking back to her laboratory alone. Hateful fellow, he said he would come see me in 3 days' time, and yet he hasn't appeared for 20 days already, making me distracted all the time. You really anger me to death. Fanny gnashed her teeth and rage, walking to her lab with her head down. Thud. Not paying attention to the path, Fanny suddenly bumped into a person. Sorry. Fanny apologized non-stop before lifting her head. However, when she looked up, she was stunned for a second before exploding with anger. Her fist hammered as she cursed, damn you, you only know to return now? It's been 20 days, don't you know that you will make people worry? Where did you get off to before only coming back now? She screamed, cursed, and hit the evilly smiling Hansha'o on the chest. Fanny seemed to vent all of her feelings as she listed all of his wrongdoings. Her voice gradually grew strange before turning into sobs at the end. Hansha'o originally wanted to tease Fanny just a little. However, upon hearing the strange tone in her voice and the footsteps closing in, he embraced her and jumped behind the big tree. His mouth rushed towards Fanny's fragrant lips for a kiss. Fanny's scolding turned into long moaning. Her hands desperately pounded against Hansha'o's chest, but her fragrant lips responded with enthusiasm. This was a separate road to Fanny's lab, surrounded by rows of ancient trees. When Hansha'o heard the incoming footsteps, he hastily embraced Fanny and jumped behind the large tree out of fear of being discovered. As Fanny responded intensely to his kiss, Hansha'o felt as if he was sinking into a beautiful dream. This charming, wondrous feeling instantly ignited upon the contact of their lips and ran deep into his soul. Hansha'o relaxed his vigilance and loosened his body, completely indulging himself in this feeling. It was a while later that Fanny finally stopped beating his chest. Her slender jade hands snaked euphorically around his neck. She was on the tips of her toes, kissing him fervently. She completely forgot everything else, forgetting that they were out in the open. After who knew how long, Fanny panted and struggled, pushing Hansha'o away. She glanced alluringly at him as she protested, go kiddishly, you 1,000 times damnable brat, why don't you ever keep your promises? As she had just finished speaking, Fanny covered her mouth and inhaled softly. Her cheeks instantly flushed as she looked behind Han Sha-oh with an exclamation. Turning around, they saw Lisa holding a magic book standing alongside Jean. Their eyes was filled with heartbreak as they stared at this sight dumbfounded. Master Jean, it's very immoral to peep on others' intimate actions. Han Sha-oh was completely calm. He turned around and spoke unhappily to Jean without letting Fanny out of his embrace. I didn't mean to. Just that Lisa was unclear about some magic knowledge that I couldn't explain it, so we came to look for Master Fanny to resolve our doubts. It was really an accident. Jean's facial expression was ugly, but he still stammered an explanation upon seeing Han Sha-oh's displeasure. Fanny had surpassed Jean on some complex magic knowledge thanks to the effect of the rebirth pill. After the great changes to Lisa's family, she suddenly became hardworking and seized every chance to improve her magic. Lisa and Jean had some questions to ask Fanny. They came for a look when hearing the panting and hadn't expected to see something that they shouldn't have seen. I didn't think that you were actually this intimate with Master Fanny. Master Fanny Brian, I hate you. Lisa said these words out of rage, then turned around and ran off in tears. Master Fanny, I give you my blessing. Jean was an adult after all. He suppressed the pain in his heart and whispered this sentence. He too then turned around to leave, his departing back seeming a little bleak. Brian, you go console Lisa. I know how much she likes you. I'm afraid she can't take this blow. Fanny softly sighed at the events and told Han Sha-oh. Shaking his head, Han Sha-oh said in a low voice, forget it, this isn't the appropriate time to see her. Give her some time. Lisa is much stronger than you think. Let's go, I'll give you your certificate proving your achievement as an adept mage in the Babylon Academy of Magic and Force. You can graduate. Fanny pondered for a bit and said no more. She let Han Sha-oh put his arm around her as they walked back to the lab, where she gave him a book with a magical brand on it. You should pay some attention to Lisa in the next 2 days. I think she'll think it through, Han Sha-oh said as he took the book. After such a thing happened, he was temporarily in no mood to act intimately with Fanny. Brian, you're leaving again? Fanny was stunned. She suddenly hugged Han Sha-oh tightly and looked up at him, speaking very unwillingly. I've officially graduated from the Babylon Academy of Magic and Force. Now that something like this has happened, I don't want Lisa to feel sad, so I can't stay here for the time being. Han Sha-oh had wanted to stay with Fanny a little longer but could only let go after giving it some thought. Then where should I go if I want to see you? I don't want you to disappear for months at a time without receiving any messages from you. Fanny frowned and hugged Han Sha-oh tightly, not letting him move. She seemed like she wouldn't let go until she received a reply. Han Sha-oh had a headache as he thought about it. He said, it seems I need to find a mansion within the Empire. So be it, I'll tell you my address after 7 days at most. I promise to not suddenly disappear for a long time. Okay. Oh right, my father may come to the Ocean City soon. I want you to meet him then. Fanny nodded, her cheeks turning crimson. She said softly as she buried her face in his chest. Han Sha-oh was dumbfounded. He secretly thought about his relationships with Phoebe and Emily. If this was discovered by Fanny or her father by chance, something serious might just happen. However, he couldn't refuse now, so he bit the bullet and said, alright, I'll come see him at that time. Forget it, I'll worry about it when it happens. I can only take one step at a time. Han Sha-oh secretly thought and said, alright, I'm going. Right, thank you for the herbal pill. It was really miraculous. Do you have any more? I want to eat a few more. As Han Sha-oh was about to leave, Fanny asked excitedly with shining eyes. This pill is extremely expensive. I only had that one pill. One pill is enough, any more would useless. Han Sha-oh sweated. Afraid that Fanny wouldn't listen, he hastily left. Chapter 273, Climbing up step by step. After leaving the Babylon Academy of Magic and Force, Han Sha-oh went straight to Lawrence's house. Together they left for the barracks of the Northern City Guards. Ocean City was divided into 4 sections: southeast, north and west. Each section had a big city gate and an independent army of guards responsible for maintaining law and order. As they arrived at the city's northern campgrounds, Lawrence opened his mouth to speak. Although we're 10 days late, I think there's no problem. What that greeted the eyes was a grand castle wholly made of solid rocks. Several armored guards stood in front of the city gate looking over the recruitment of ordinary civilians with strong physique. They were being examined before they could join the rookies. Lawrence walked over to them with Han Shao and said with authority, he is an adept mage who's just graduated from the Babylon Academy of Magic and Force. He'll join your magic corps from now on. An officer was lying lazily on a chair, his mouth munching on the fruits on the plate. As soon as he heard Lawrence's voice, he scrambled to his feet and put on a flattering smile. Greetings to the young master Lawrence. Lawrence nodded and pointed at Han Shao, saying, he's my friend. He intends to join the magic corps of the city's northern guard. We'll proceed based on the formal procedures. An adept mage. The officer was shocked. His expression was much more respectful as he looked at Han Shao. May I see your certificate? There were 3 jobs in the profound continent: swordsman, knight and mage. Swordsmen held the lowest status, knights were a little higher, and the rarest and highest were the mages. To a country, a mage of the same level brought more benefits to the army. For instance, a senior swordsman or senior knight could only kill several soldiers in one attack, no matter how powerful they were. However, if an adept mage released a magic spell of great lethality, they could kill dozens or more than 100 of soldiers in an instant. The higher the mage's level, the more powerful their spell was. For example, if a sacred magus released a forbidden spell, he could even destroy a city and kill tens of thousands soldiers in a second. Because mages possessed magic spells with a large area of destruction, they were very useful in the military. Their status was obviously higher than swordsmen or knights. Generally, in any country, if a mage reached the level of archmage, they would be bestowed with a noble title in their own territory. As for those of the grand magus or sacred magus level, they were the talent that every country competed over. The king of that country would agree to any of their conditions, from wealth, position to beautiful women. Everything could be theirs. That was why the officer's attitude had taken a complete turn for the opposite upon hearing that he was an adept mage who'd graduated from the Babylon Academy of Magic and Force. Over the years, the Academy had produced many of the most outstanding figures in the Empire. Currently, several notable figures who were the best in their fields of expertise had all graduated from this academy. Of course you can. Han Shao took out his graduation certificate from his space ring and handed it to the officer. Only now did the officer realize that Han Shao wore a space ring. He was slightly surprised. An adept mage who could possess a space ring was definitely not ordinary. The officer became even more respectful. He held the certificate and skimmed it before handing it back to Han Shao with both hands, saying, in all honesty, there's no problem at all. We of the city's Northern Guard welcome you to join us. You will be a member of the Northern Guard's Magic Corps. Please follow me, I'll help you with the documents. I'm going with you. Lawrence smiled at Han Shao and followed the latter into the castle. The officer seemed to know Lawrence, as he didn't stop him from following. The 3 yin demons had been released earlier to circle around the castle. Han Shao discovered that the castle was divided into several areas. The bottom floor was the rooms of ordinary soldiers. It could accommodate nearly 1,000 people. The second floor was for ordinary officers, the third floor for senior generals and the members of the Magic Corps. Han Shao paid some attention and realized that there was a basement with storing weapons and food. Even though this castle was inside Dawson City, its defenses weren't weak. The castle walls were 10 meters tall with several guards in each direction. There were several heavy defensive weaponries and even 3 magic towers set up. This was the base camp of the Northern Guard. Many more soldiers were stationed outside. The scattered Northern Guard was divided into 3 portions. One portion trained in the jungle, another stood defense at the northern gate, and the remaining was in charge of patrolling to prevent brawling inside the city. Before he came here, Han Shao knew Lawrence was acquainted with the highest commander of the city's Northern Guard, Count Boris Karlin, so he hadn't been worried at all. In the Lancelot Empire, the majority of military power was in the hands of the nobility. Lawrence's uncle Boris Karlin, for example, was a count of the empire. The Karlin family in the empire was regarded as a grand family. Lawrence's father in name and Boris's older brother Evie Karlin was one rank higher as a marquess of the empire. Evie Karlin had an intimate relationship with the king due to his connection with Lawrence. With Evie's support plus his own extraordinary military talent, Boris Karlin was able to sit on the position of the Northern Guard's highest commander. Obviously, Lawrence arranged for Han Shao to be here because his uncle was in charge of this organization. The soldiers in the castle all knew knew of the relationship between Lawrence and Boris. That was why they treated the former so respectfully. Even Han Shao following Lawrence also received the same treatment. "Oh my lovely Lawrence, you haven't come to see me in such a long time." The group is heading to the third floor of the castle when an army man of 1 meter 80 centimeters in height with a rough beardy face called out loudly from a distant staircase. "Hi dear uncle, aren't I visiting you right now? Hee, I've brought an outstanding person here. Isn't your nephew good to you?" Lawrence laughed all the way as he pulled Han Shao to Boris. Boris laughed heartily with a resounding voice. He swept a glance over Han Shao and said, "Is this the Brian that you've mentioned to me many times?" Ha, his body is unexpectedly strong and he's an incredible mage to boot. Truly unimaginable. Due to his practice of magical cultivation, Han Shao was now 1 meter 90 centimeters tall. His back was as straight as a javelin, naturally emitting an extraordinary presence. Although he was wearing an ordinary magic robe, this presence emitting from his body simply couldn't be concealed. "Greetings, honored Count Boris. Please take care of me from now on." Han Shao had a firm grasp on the situation. He smiled and bowed respectfully. Well said, well said." Boris laughed loudly again and spoke to the guiding officer. "Look, you help Brian complete the procedures." "Lawrence, Brian, come to my room for a bit." Boris waited for the two to step up the stairs before enthusiastically grabbing onto them, leading them straight to the biggest room on the third floor. All the guards respectfully saluted Boris along the way. Boris' hand was rough like an old tree bark's. Han Shao immediately understood from the sensation that he used heavy weaponry. Han Shao had heard Lawrence mention that Boris was an Earth Rider. Boris' room was built in with big boulders, bright and spacious. There wasn't any luxurious items, only some simple furniture. It seemed Boris wasn't an extravagant person. "All of you are dismissed. Don't let anyone in for now," Boris ordered upon reaching the doorstep. The two senior swordsmen withdrew themselves without a word and stood guard at a distance from the door. When the three had settled down in the room, Boris went straight to the point. "Brian, I'll be frank on account of your relationship with Lawrence. Since you've come here, I'll help you obtain the title of Duke in the fastest way possible. Lawrence told me that you have endless potential and will definitely become a great assistant of his. I believe in his vision." "Thank you, Sir Count." Han Shao nodded slightly and smiled with gratitude. "No need to be polite. Helping you is helping Lawrence, which is also helping myself. We'll have you stay in the Magic Corps for now with no particular status. However, when you make a military achievement to the Northern Guard plus your identity as a mage, I can help you apply for a noble title. From then on, your rank will gradually increase based on your contributions." Boris looked at Han Shao and slowly explained. "Uncle Boris, for this period when Brian is in the Northern Guard, the Viscount title will do just fine. The higher titles aren't as easily acquired through the Northern Guard. I have my own plans." Lawrence had long since made his plans about Han Shao's position. Considering the achievements and power of the Northern Guard, it might only be enough for Han Shao to become a Viscount here. Even Boris was only a Count after all. It would be difficult to promote Han Shao once more in the Northern Guard. You little boy. Good, I just have something here. If you can do well, Brian, your credit will definitely be recognized. I can help you obtain a title faster than. Boris rolled his eyes at Lawrence before telling Han Shao with a smile. His thoughts moved. Han Shao was immediately interested. What matter? Chapter 274, Who Dares to Act Wildly? The Imperial Weapons Factory has developed a new type of chariot that can consecutively shoot bolts thousands of miles away. This secret arsenal was located in the wilderness to the north of the city and was originally under the responsibility of our Northern Guard. However, one night about half a month ago, a group of assassins suddenly snuck in and killed the guards in addition to a dozen inventors there. They also took the blueprints of the chariot. His Majesty the King was furious when he heard this news and gave me a month to arrest this gang and retrieve the blueprints at all costs. This matter is really stressing me out. If you can help me resolve it, I guarantee that you'll easily receive the title of Baron. Boris turned gloomy upon talking about this matter. His hearty laugh from earlier had long since disappeared. I too am thinking of a way to resolve this. If we don't capture those people and take back the blueprint within a month, it could affect my uncle's career. Lawrence sighed softly and turned to Han Shao as he spoke, somewhat worried. Boris was his backer. In his struggle for the throne, whether or not Lawrence could stand out mainly relied on the power of his supporters. First Prince Charles currently had the biggest influence and also the most supporters. Lawrence had the weakest force due to him being an illegitimate child. His status would certainly be affected if the people closest to him lost their standing. Han Shao wrinkled his brows, thinking for a bit before opening his mouth to say, if it's been half a month, wouldn't they have left the capital already? If they really did, it'd be like finding a needle in a haystack. If we want to catch them, they shouldn't have. I immediately reported this to His Majesty before anything else. When this happened, Master Candide, one of the three heavyweights of the Dark Mantle, took notice of this and ordered the guards to strengthen the defense of the four gates, not letting any suspicious character leave. I'm positive that they haven't been able to leave Austin City, Boris said in a low voice, his face solemn. I see. Then did Master Candide tell you who was taking charge of this mission? Han Shao asked. Everyone with a high position all knew of the Dark Mantle's existence. Candide was the most mysterious, most difficult to reach figure. Han Shao understood the protocol of the Dark Mantle. An enemy country must be pulling the strings behind such a major matter, so the Dark Mantle couldn't afford to not send anyone to handle it. Boris smiled dryly and shook his head as he replied, I only know of his name but didn't have the honor of meeting him. I got this information from a higher up. Although I tried to check afterwards, I wasn't able to find out who's in charge of this. Han Shao nodded with a faint smile and said, this I understand. I will try my best. When I see Master Candide, I will ask him about what's going on. Boris was shocked. He urgently asked, you know Master Candide? I forgot to tell you, Uncle, but Brian has another identity as a Dark Mantle member. Lawrence turned to explain to Boris, then asked with the same shocked expression, Brian, I only know you're a member of the Dark Mantle, but can you really meet that old monster Candide directly? He's directly in charge for me. Han Shao nodded with a smile. Lawrence was immediately ecstatic upon hearing this. He looked at Han Shao with eyes full of excitement. I really didn't think that you had such a special position in the Dark Mantle to directly answer to that old monster. It seems like I've truly made the right choice. Very good. Boris was also overjoyed. He gave Lawrence a grateful look and said to Han Shao, then I'll leave this matter in your care completely. As long as you can handle it, I'll take care of obtaining a baron title for you. I'll do my best. Han Shao didn't dare to guarantee anything. After all, he didn't know the specifics of the situation. The Dark Mantle might have a wide network, but it wasn't omnipotent. Alright, Uncle Boris, Brian belongs to your magic corps only in name, so you needn't assign him to any jobs. He won't come to the Northern Guard if there's nothing else. We'll be going for now. Lawrence stood up and said straightforwardly. He didn't mouth empty pleasantries in front of his uncle. Rest assured, I know what to do. Helping him is helping you and also helping myself. I understand this clearly. Boris obviously wouldn't keep Han Shao in the camp to do petty chores after knowing the latter's identity as a member of the Dark Mantle. He understood Han Shao had joined purely to accumulate military credit and rely on the Northern Guard for a quick promotion. Han Shao absolutely wouldn't stay for long. Lawrence and Han Shao left the Northern Guard together. As they exited through the city gates, Lawrence asked Han Shao, are you certain you can handle this? This matter is related to my uncle's career. I'll leave it in your hands. I can only try my best. After all, I don't know the specific details yet. Han Shao replied. At this moment, when he was getting onto Lawrence's carriage, Han Shao suddenly frowned and whispered, Lawrence, be careful on the way. Lawrence was stunned and asked in a low voice without a flicker in his expression, is someone attempting to kill me? You get in the carriage first. I won't leave together with you but will protect you from the shadows. Han Shao nodded, indicating that Lawrence shouldn't act rashly and alert the enemy. Alright then, I'll be going first, Lawrence said loudly, his face flashing a smile like nothing had happened as he got into the carriage and left. As soon as Lawrence had left in the carriage, Han Shao turned down another street. He walked dozens of meters before seeing a carriage in a corner. He shouted lowly, Chester, why are you here? Chester, wearing a coachman outfit, turned his head upon hearing the familiar voice and exclaimed in delighted surprise, Brian, why are you here? Two small hands suddenly lifted the curtain. The touchingly charming Emily appeared, covering her mouth as she lightly shouted in joy, Rascal, what are you doing here? After a long time, Emily was ever heartbreakingly beautiful. Her long hair was done up high and she wore a long purple dress, along with her figure elegant and solemn eyebrows revealed an inviolable holiness. Her presence was completely different from the flirtatious manner the first time Han Shao had met her. "I went to the Northern Guard for a job. I discovered Chester looking around, so I came to see. What are you guys doing here?" Han Shao wrinkled his brows, asking urgently. "The Northern Guard lost a chariot blueprint. I'm in charge of this mission and have sent people to inquire about the details of the situation." Because of their relationship, Emily told Han Shao about the secret mission without hesitation. Delight flooded his heart. Han Shao said, "So that's why. Haha, we are really destined to be together. Okay, I'll talk to you when I come to the Dark Mantle's base in the city's northern castle tonight. Now I have some matters to deal with. See you tonight." As he finished speaking, Han Shao nodded towards Chester and quickly vanished into the night, not paying attention to Emily, who was full of confusion. "Master Brian is becoming more and more mysterious these days. I heard he made a great achievement again. The Dark Mantle Network is spreading legends of his power." Chester couldn't help but say in admiration upon seeing Han Shao disappear in the blink of an eye. "He only pretends to be mysterious. Why hasn't that brat returned yet? We need to quickly handle this matter and return to the base in the northern stronghold as soon as possible." Emily was impatient when she saw Han Shao appear. She began to begrudge her man who'd gone over to the Northern Guard. "Be careful." Sitting in the carriage, Lawrence lifted the curtain to speak softly to Earth Rider Jaina, who was riding a horse beside him. "Rest assured we will protect the young master well." Jaina rode a war horse. He wore shiny silver armor, his hand grasping a silver spear. Just be very careful." Lawrence was completely calm but still repeatedly advised. After his partnership with Han Shao in Valen City, Lawrence knew very well about the latter's miraculous ability, so he had no doubt about Han Shao's words. With Jaina leading the experts out in the open and old assassin Lucky near him for personal protection, Lawrence wasn't too worried. Moreover, Han Shao had told him he'd secretly protect him before leaving, so Lawrence was even more assured given his understanding of Han Shao's strength. After all, Lawrence had personally seen his terrifying power. When the group reached a long alley, a long shrill whistle suddenly resounded. The ground violently shook before 3-meter-long earth spikes shot towards Lawrence's carriage. The spikes also ambushed Jaino's group on war horses at the same time. The horses were pierced and killed in the blink of an eye. Fortunately, Lawrence's group had been on alert. As soon as the ground had trembled, they'd immediately jumped out of the carriage and off their horses to an area free of the earth spikes. Several archers shot a series of sharp arrows from the rooftops around the alley. The arrows howled through the air as they whizzed straight towards Lawrence's group. Jaina and the knights quickly spread out to surround Lawrence and raise their shields in defense. Polak continued to release the earth spikes. A black-robed mage shouted towards another rooftop, "I'm Brian from the Northern Guard's Magic Corps. Who dares to act wildly in my jurisdiction? Are you tired of living?" Brian came out from another direction, laughing coldly, his hand holding a head dripping with blood. "Polak!" The black-robed mage immediately screamed in shock upon seeing the head in Han Shao's hand. Chapter 275, Killing Two Birds with One Stone. There were a total of 10 people in the group that had ambushed Lawrence. 3 mages, 4 archers and 3 swordsmen. Amongst the 3 swordsmen only one was a sword master, while the other 2 were senior swordsmen. Except for the earth adept mage that Han Shao had already killed, there was one space adept mage in the black-robed dark archmage. The black-robed mage felt a chill down his spine when he saw Han Shao appear with Polak's head in hand. The 2 mages had been back to back, yet he hadn't even noticed when Polak was killed. This indicated the absolutely extraordinary strength of the newcomer. "Kill this person first," the black-robed mage shouted, about to chant a magic incantation. Suddenly the big tree next to him swayed in an odd manner. Like a peacock displaying its tail, the tree branches turned into sharp arrows and shot towards the mage in a hail of sharp missiles that covered the sky. He simply had no time to react, as dozens of branches transformed his body into a pincushion. He turned into a hedgehog, his blood flowing profusely. The mage's eyes were still wide open as he died. He couldn't accept the fact that the tree had suddenly turned into a murder weapon. Why did the ordinary tree suddenly turn into an unblinking murder weapon? The 2 senior swordsmen were dressed in black Night Talker outfits as they jumped down from the rooftop, intending to kill Han Shao firsthand. Ludicrously, 3 cracks somehow appeared on the ground where they landed. They'd wanted to borrow the force of their movement to spring towards Han Shao, but let out a tragic scream as they were swallowed by the cracks like flies, casting themselves into a spiral spider's web. The remaining people looked on dumbfounded at the weird happenings with perturbed hearts. The swordmaster assassin then ordered in a grave tone retreat. The four archers and the space adept mage were as if granted amnesty by this word. They quickly turned around about to flee. Want to escape? Hey, it's my first day of work today. I'll gain some standing for catching all of you. Han Shao leisurely gave chase while smiling cutely. The swordmaster leapt his feet about to tap the small tree next to him when the tree unexpectedly came to life, the snake-like branches tightly wrapping around his ankle. More and more of branches twisted like octopus tentacles and tightly bound the lower half of his body. The swordmaster's face was dreadful as he waved his sword attempting to hack off the soft branches. However, at this precise moment old assassin Lucky emerged from the shadows and approached like a ghost to finish the struggling swordmaster. Han Shao was about to act but halted upon seeing Lucky approach. He understood the swordmaster would be hard-pressed to escape death, so he turned his sights to the four archers and the space adept mage. Brian capture when alive. Lawrence was both surprised and overjoyed. He didn't expect Han Shao to be so stunning and calm in the face of so many experts. He'd use some unexpected method to casually play with them in his hand. Murder. Shut the door quickly, shut the door. Even though this alley was remote, there were still people in the broad daylight. Several civilians opened the windows to take a peek upon hearing Han Shao's shouts, then hastily shut both their windows and doors in horror of the fear of being implicated. Han Shao's sensitive hearing soon caught the sound of a cavalry team quickly approaching from afar. He looked in the direction where the four archers had escaped and laughed sinisterly. His body flashing with a whooshing sound like a stone thrown from a catapult, he landed in the midst of the four archers in the blink of an eye. The demon slayer Reg instantly took 3 lives like a demon summoned from hell. Han Shao restrained the last archer by grabbing the back of his neck, lifting him up using one hand. The archer was only 1 meter and 70 centimeters tall, so his legs flailed around upon being lifted up. He grunted gutturally and couldn't utter a complete word as he looked down in horror at Han Shao. The quiver on the back of this poor archer had long since been thrown away. Although he struggled with all that he had, he couldn't reach Han Shao since his 2 arms were shorter than the latter's. It looked quite comical. Kid, be good and your crime will be lessened. Han Shao grinned. He walked back towards Lawrence while easily holding the archer. The other space adept mage didn't get to take a few steps before he was coldly shot down by a dark arrow in the middle of his back. The dead mage fell from the rooftop to the ground. The person who shot the arrow was the old assassin Lucky. Han Shao had seen the happenings clearly, so he wasn't surprised about the space adept mage's death. Who dares to fight on the street? ? The cavalry rushed from a distance only when everything was over. The leading officer was fully armored as he shouted loudly, "You city guards are truly unreliable." Lawrence on the other side shook his head and let out a long sigh. He didn't spare a glance towards the officer and looked toward Han Shao with appreciation. "Many thanks, Brian. Alright, I choked this person unconscious, so you look after him yourself. Remember that I protected you this time, so the Dark Mantle higher-ups will take note of this accomplishment. In addition, I protected the order of the Northern Castle and prevented a malicious assassination, so the Northern Guard should record this credit for me." Accomplishing 2 deeds in one go, what a great harvest. Han Shao was secretly smug. Got it. Lawrence understood what he meant and answered with a smile. There's no more danger on the road, I'll be leaving then." Han Shao only flung out these words before leaving in style. The officer had originally wanted to stop him, but he simply didn't have the courage to say anything and let Han Shao leave leisurely when he recognized Lawrence and saw how the two were chatting warmly. Han Shao reached the Dark Mantle's northern stronghold at night as he'd promised. Emily had been waiting for quite some time. When she saw Han Shao appear, she immediately waved her hand to signal Chester to withdraw so that she could be intimate with Han Shao. The two discussed what had happened after they'd parted at the Valley of Sunshine. They also talked about the Northern Guard's stolen blueprint. "Are there any clues?" Han Shao asked Emily after listening. "I'm inspecting this closely, but I can be certain that the people haven't left Dawson City since the Dark Mantle immediately started investigations. Our people are stationed at all 4 gates. The foreigners are being detained by the Empire, so they have no chance to slip out. We actually discovered a few suspicious groups recently. However, we can't be sure if they were the ones behind this. I'm investigating this with full force. As long as I can determine which group did this, none of them will be able to escape Hassan City. You just wait for my news. Although this problem is tricky, the Dark Mantle will definitely handle it properly since it occurred inside the city. Emily had a cautious expression as she whispered in a low voice. Store these two things well. They will definitely help increase your power. Han Shao took out the magic staff embedded with 3 amethysts and a notebook in which he recorded everything he remembered from Mike Cotton's ancient notebook. He handed them over to Emily. For me? Emily was stunned upon seeing these two things, her mind temporarily dizzy. She understood clearly how valuable these things were. Mike Cotton's handwritten notebook had recorded his experiences, understandings and feelings about dark magic. It was a sacred object that every dark mage would give an arm and a leg for. As for the magic staff, its value was even more difficult to calculate given the terrifyingly rich dark elements on the surface. Emily had already had a faint premonition when she heard Han Shao say he had taken down a copy of the notebook. However, her heart still pounded wildly in disbelief when he actually handed these two treasures to her. Of course they belonged to you the moment I got them. However, you need to prepare a reason for this magic staff so it won't rouse Candide's suspicion. Han Shao had turned in the original handwritten notebook to Candide but concealed the matter about Mike Cotton's magic staff. To dark mages, this magic staff certainly wouldn't have the ordinary effect of magnifying magic spells. Han Shao reminded Emily in advance so that she could evade Candide's scrutiny. Emily inhaled deeply and murmured, the Dark Star staff belonged to magic god Mike Cotton. Its thick covering of dark element can help dark mages gather their mental strength faster. Be it training or casting magic, the speed should be 5 times faster when using the Dark Star staff. This staff is considered a divine artifact for dark mages. Then there's also the comprehension of dark magic from magic god Mike. If I can completely understand everything, my power will increase by leaps and bounds and reach new heights. These two things are simply priceless artifacts for dark mages. No need to be so moved. I know full well of their value. They belong to you now. When Han Shao saw Emily so happy to the point of forgetting everything else, he hugged her by the waist and continued, eat this pill. It can give you eternal youth and is very beneficial to the study of dark magic. Emily's heart almost stopped beating from excitement when she heard the 2 words eternal youth. One good thing after another was falling on her head today, all of which was brought about by Han Shao. This was the first time she'd ever experienced such a thing in her life, and it also proved her position in Han Shao's heart. Eternal youth, eternal youth. Emily was most concerned about her age. Her being older than Han Shao had been a knot in her heart. Now that there was a medicine that could maintain eternal youth, she was willing to pay any price no matter what. Her whole being became distracted as she muttered non-stop, eat it, I'll help you dissolve the pill. Han Shao whispered. He pulled her over by the hand and brought the rebirth pill to her lips. Emily's eyes shone brightly. She swallowed the rebirth pill without hesitation. Afterwards her bones emitted cracking sounds as the rebirth pill reformed her body bit by bit. Han Shao's help. Like Fanny and Phoebe, Emily also had a need for the toilet. She only felt assured after Han Shao told her the pill's side effect. Han Shao left the stronghold and went straight to the Boost Merchant Guild. In the deserted training field inside the guild, Phoebe was wearing a pure white warrior outfit, her hair braided and tied into a ponytail. The sword in her hand whistled as it danced around. Her body moved like a lightning bolt within the field. Shadow images appeared one after another from the high speed. Extremely sharp silver crosses blossomed from the sword as they hacked a huge rock into fragments with rumbling sounds. Suddenly Phoebe seemed to discover something. She raised the sword in her hand and shot spinning crossblades towards a small tree. Cracking sounds echoed as the tree exploded into hundreds of pieces. A black light flashed. A shadow behind the tree rushed forward at a very high speed and slipped through the spinning crossblades. A huge killing aura enveloped Phoebe and restrained her. Dread spread from the depths of her soul and filled her mind. In the blink of an eye, everything around her seemed to be confined by the killing intent. Phoebe suddenly felt her body stiffen up. She simply couldn't move. A deep fear surged in her heart. However, the violently churning killing intent suddenly stopped when it almost touched Phoebe's delicate body. It spread to the sides, not hurting her in the least bit. When the killing intent disappeared and she relaxed her whole body, Han Shao appeared right in front of her eyes with a slight smile. Congratulations. I didn't expect you would reach the rank of Great Swordmaster at such a young age. Truly incredible. Han Shao looked at Phoebe with a smile and congratulated her. Phoebe rushed into Han Shao's chest with happy surprise like a young swallow returning to its nest. A faint fragrance mixed with a dashed taste of sweat instantly assaulted his nostrils. She tightly embraced Han Shao and said in a sweet excited voice, all thanks to that medicinal pill, or I wouldn't be able to break through so quickly. Take a look, how am I different from before? Like Fanny, Phoebe's skin was soft and delicate like silk. Her already beautiful smile was now even more soul-shaking after the rebirth pill's reformation. You've become much more beautiful, Han Shao replied honestly. I'm you all sweaty, let me take a bath first. Phoebe softly pushed Han Shao away and walked to her bathroom somewhat embarrassed. Suddenly she stopped halfway and said in a light voice that couldn't be lighter, come with me.